This is the new 2022 Ford Bronco Raptor, and it's the ultimate off-road version of the new Ford Bronco. The Raptor name has been used to great success in the Ford F-150 pickup, and now it's coming to the Bronco. And today I'm going to take you on a tour of the new Bronco Raptor. Before I get started, be sure to check out Cars and Bids, which is my enthusiast car auction website for cool cars from the modern era, now with free listings. You can list your car for free and auction it on Cars and Bids. And we've had some fantastic sales recently, including this Tesla Model S Plaid, which sold for $137,000. This fantastic Sprinter van with four-wheel drive brought $62,000, and this wonderful Porsche Cayenne diesel sold for $42,500. If you're looking to buy or sell a cool enthusiast car from the modern era, the 1980s and up, Cars and Bids is the place to do it, with daily auctions and great selection at carsandbids.com. So let's talk Bronco Raptor. Everyone already knows about the new Ford Bronco, which went on sale last year as a major rival to the Jeep Wrangler. The Bronco is already a pretty capable off-roader, especially with its Sasquatch package, but now Ford is turning things up a notch with the new Bronco Raptor. Like the F-150 Raptor, the Bronco Raptor is aimed at the off-road crowd with an enormous number of upgrades over the standard model, which I will show you. Now, unfortunately, I can't drive the Bronco Raptor just yet, as this is a pre-production model, but I'll be able to get behind the wheel in a few months because the Bronco Raptor officially goes on sale this spring, with dealership deliveries projected for this summer, with a starting price of around $70,000 with shipping before options. For now, I'm going to take you on a thorough tour of the new Bronco Raptor and show you around all of its quirks and features, along with its many upgrades over the regular Bronco. So let's get started. Alright, I'm going to start the quirks and features of the Bronco Raptor under the hood, because that's what everybody wants to know. How much power? Everybody assumed there would be a Bronco Raptor. It was sort of a foregone conclusion, but the powertrain has remained a mystery until now. Now, everybody I know assumed the Bronco Raptor would share its powertrain with the F-150 Raptor, which uses a 3.5-liter EcoBoost Turbo V6 that makes 450 horsepower, but it doesn't. Instead, this is a 3-liter turbo EcoBoost V6 that makes around 400 horsepower. Ford hasn't committed to an exact power figure yet, but they're saying about 400 horsepower, maybe a little bit more for the Bronco Raptor. Now, if you're familiar with Ford powertrains, you might be wondering, what exactly is this engine? 3-liter EcoBoost V6. You know about the 2.3 in the Ranger and the base Bronco, the 2.7 in the Bronco, the 3.5 in the pickups. What is the 3-liter? And the answer is, it's used in mainly Lincolns. It was in the MKZ and also the Lincoln Aviator, and this engine powers the Ford Explorer ST, where it also makes 400 horsepower. So that's where it comes from, not as widespread use as some of the other EcoBoost powertrains. In the press release for the Bronco Raptor, Ford said that this engine has some Ford Performance engine tuning specific to the Bronco Raptor. So, like I said, they won't commit to an exact power figure just yet, but it's 400 in the Explorer ST. We'll hope for a little bit more in the Bronco Raptor with that Ford Performance Raptor specific engine tuning. Now, as for this power figure, whether it's 400, 410, 415, I suspect some people might be a little bit disappointed by the power number in the Bronco Raptor. I say that because the Jeep Wrangler 392 is out with its big Hemi V8 and 470 horsepower, which is obviously a huge figure, and it towers over the Bronco Raptor. Even though the Wrangler is already out, already on sale, and this is just coming out, it doesn't quite equal what the Jeep has, which is sort of a disappointment. But with that said, this is cheaper. Ford has already announced the Bronco Raptor will start at $69,995 with destination, so 70 grand for this. That undercuts the Wrangler 392 by about $5,000 to $6,000. So this is less powerful than the Jeep, but it's also less expensive. Now, it is worth noting that even though this powertrain doesn't make the 450 horsepower from the F-150 Raptor, Raptor, it is still a big upgrade over the regular Bronco. Regular Bronco base engine's 275 horsepower, the upgraded engine is 315. So this at 400 horsepower is a stronger, much more muscular powertrain. Still, I am surprised they didn't just give this the same 450 horsepower, 3.5 liter turbo EcoBoost from the F-150 Raptor. And I think there will be some disappointment among Bronco fans that the Raptor doesn't have more muscle. So I asked Ford about this. Why not more power, especially considering the F-150 Raptor and the Jeep is out there? And they gave me the usual line. They wanted to find the right powertrain that was a good fit for the vehicle, all that. But personally, I think they're making room for a Bronco Raptor R. We already know that there's an F-150 Raptor R coming with even more power, and I suspect that same thing will happen to the Bronco line. This hasn't been confirmed by Ford at all. It's just some speculation from Doug, considering what they're doing with the F-150 lineup and considering that there's already a more powerful competitor from Jeep that already exists. Now, one other item I want to mention with the powertrain, Ford says it does have upgraded intercooling and airflow systems to allow cruising and performance at higher temperatures, because Ford assumes this is going to be used like in the desert Baja style off-roading where the Lincoln Aviator and the Explorer ST really aren't. Also worth noting that this powertrain is mated to the 10-speed automatic transmission that you could also find in the Explorer ST. No real surprise, but in case you're wondering, that's the transmission. But anyway, next I'm going to go over all the upgrades to the Bronco Raptor over the standard Bronco, starting with the one that is most clearly obvious from the moment you walk up to this truck, and that is, it is massively wider than the standard Bronco, considerably wider. Ford says this is 85.7 inches wide with the mirrors folded in, so you better measure your garage first to make sure it fits before you place a deposit or an order for one of these. Now, one of the reasons for this extra width was they had to accommodate these massive tires. 37-inch BF Goodrich KO2 all-terrain tires are standard on the Bronco Raptor. They are massive. Ford says these are the largest tires ever fitted to a production SUV here in North America, and they certainly look like it. They are absolutely huge. But anyway, obviously the Bronco Raptor has far more upgrades than just extra power and bigger tires. A big one is suspension. This has a new upgraded Fox suspension system that gives the Bronco Raptor additional ground clearance over other Bronco models. Ford says 13.1 inches of ground clearance for the Bronco Raptor, which is an absolutely huge figure. It's almost 5 inches of ground clearance more than a base Bronco, which is massive considering it's the same vehicle, and it's over an inch more than the Sasquatch, which on its own terms is a tremendously capable off-roader. Well, this thing is even more legit. And of course there is more. You have a skid plate in front, as you can see, and it goes very far underneath the vehicle, protects the engine and all the driveline components from anything you might throw at them when you're off-roading your Raptor hard. Ford also says the Bronco Raptor has new competition-ready axles developed by Ford Performance, which obviously can take a beating and stretch out the track width of the Bronco Raptor. Everything about this vehicle is wider, including the track, as you can see. Ford says the Bronco Raptor's track width is about 73.5 inches, which is 8.5 inches wider than in a base Bronco and about 4 inches wider than in a Sasquatch Bronco. So this thing has really been significantly beefed up. Also, new shock towers add considerably more wheel travel, front and back. Ford says like 13 inches in front, 14 inches in back of wheel travel, which is also a huge upgrade over other Bronco models. And of course, there's still more. Rigidity was a big deal for the Bronco Raptor, and Ford added reinforcement in many places, but two very obvious ones on the inside. This crossbar here is not on regular Bronco models, but it's been added to the Raptor for extra reinforcement and rigidity. Same deal with this one in back. You can see very obviously added here, Ford Performance on it. Even the crossbar looks cool. Ford says that these two simple additions, these crossbars for extra reinforcement, added 50% more rigidity in the Bronco Raptor compared to the standard model. And of course, there is still more. You have a dual exhaust system in the Bronco Raptor, and there are several different exhaust modes that you can play with, from quiet all the way to Baja for maximum sound. It's worth noting there are two other modes as well. You have a normal mode and you also have a sport mode if you don't necessarily want to go full Baja with the exhaust. Next up, I want to talk wheels. These are 17-inch wheels. Ford says there will be several different styles available for the Bronco Raptor, and some of them will be bead lock capable, which means that you can actually fasten the wheel to the tire when you're off-roading. That's a big deal because you lower your air pressures when you go off-roading, and you don't want the tire to pop off the wheel, which would be a disaster way out in the wilderness. So bead lock wheels can actually fasten to the tire so that won't happen. It's a hallmark of really serious off-road vehicles like this one. And upgrades to the Bronco Raptor still don't stop there. You have a higher strength frame in the Bronco Raptor, which can take a lot more abuse and beatings because Ford knows that's exactly what Bronco Raptor customers will do with these vehicles. Another upgrade, you get larger drive shafts in the Bronco Raptor for increased wheel torque, which will be nice to have considering the upgrades to this vehicle, and you get better brakes. More power means you'll want more stopping power, and so they've upgraded the brakes on the Bronco Raptor. It shares these brakes with the F-150 Raptor, which I assume is a heavier vehicle, so these are probably very capable brakes for getting the Bronco Raptor slowed down. And there is oh so much more to cover with the Bronco Raptor. But before I cover any other exterior details, I want to mention one important point: 4-door only. There is no 2-door body style for the Bronco Raptor. The only way you can get this is in the 4-door body style. Just like the Wrangler 392, which also is only offered as a 4-door, this thing will not be available in 2-door body style. But let's talk about the front end of the Bronco Raptor, which you can see is quite a bit different from the regular Bronco's front end. For one thing, the grille says Ford in giant letters going across the front, instead of Bronco like other Bronco models. And that's because other Raptor models have said Ford in the past, and this just seems right to tie in the Raptor to other Raptors. So you get this beefy, muscular Ford grille up front. Also a nice benefit for the Bronco Raptor, you get LED headlights that are specific to the Bronco Raptor, not offered on other Bronco models, and you get these amber running lights, which just look cool. They're also specific to the Bronco Raptor. You can't get them on other Broncos, and they certainly help distinguish the Bronco Raptor from the front. And speaking of lighting, there are some very interesting quirks to the lighting in the Bronco Raptor. Let's start with the 3 dots. You can see these 3 orange light dots above Ford in the grille. Those look cool. They make it look beefy and muscular, but they're also government mandated. According to the federal government, every vehicle over 80 inches in width has to have these 3 orange dot lights in front, plus 2 more orange dot lights on the sides, and then 3 red dot lights in back, and 2 more red dot lights on the side. So Ford puts the 3 orange dots in front right here on the grille, which is cool, kind of a Raptor signature. The little 2 orange dots on the side, they integrate into the mirrors, and you can see them here, 1 on each side, in order to comply with this regulation. But the especially interesting and quirky thing is what Ford has done around back. The 3 red dots that the government mandates in back are right here in the middle, as you can see. And Ford also tells me this is a completely new third brake light because the old one was just too small to fit around this massive 37-inch tire on the back. So new third brake light, and it incorporates the 3 mandated dots. But the coolest part is how they've integrated the remaining 2 red side dots. The government says you cannot put these on a piece of bodywork that can be moved or removed, so it couldn't go on the top. Instead, they've integrated them into the mirrors, just like the orange ones in front. You can see on either side facing backwards, you have the red dots. This complies with the regulation for rear lighting, even though these aren't anywhere near the rear of the vehicle. And it's so interesting to see the mirror housing holding lights that are both orange and red in one. But they had to do that because this vehicle is so wide that those red dots were all mandated by the government, so that's how they integrated them. But anyway, since we're talking lighting back here, I also want to touch on the brake lights, which are completely new and distinctive for the Raptor. Ford said they wanted to try to emulate the look of the brake lights in the Bronco R, which was sort of a racing Bronco prototype, and they wanted to at least see that element make production, and so these brake lights do sort of have that look. Also integrated into the brake lights, you can see this plastic piece here in the middle on the side. That's where the blind spot monitor, like radar radar sensor is located. So if you're wondering why that little plastic piece is sticking out, well, that's what it's for. Also worth noting, around back, a couple of other interesting items back here. For one, the spare tire carrier has been upgraded. You can see this is different from the one in the regular Bronco. It's been improved. Ford said they needed something a little bit heavier duty in order to carry the extra weight of this massive 37-inch tire, so you get a new spare carrier. Ford does point out, though, that even this spare tire carrier does still have these accessory mounting points back here, so if you wanted to install like a high lift jack or some other off-roading tools, you can do that still on the Raptor's new spare tire carrier. But anyway, next we move back up front in the Bronco Raptor, where there is still quite a bit more to cover, including my very favorite lighting-related quirk in this entire vehicle. Now, I already showed you the LED headlights and the amber running lights and all that stuff, but you will also notice 4 different fog lights in the bumper. You can see 2 on each side integrated into the bumper, but when this truck ships to dealers, 2 of these fog lights will be covered. You will only get 1 on each side, and the other will have a tiny little cover placed over it, just like this. That's because Ford tells me there is a government regulation that dictates how many lumens a vehicle can have in the front when it's sold new by an automaker, and adding these extra little fog lights in the bumper goes over the lumen maximum. So they had to cover 2 of the fog lights in order to fit into that regulation. But of course, as soon as you buy the Bronco Raptor, you just pull off that cover to get your full fog light experience. But Ford does say technically those caps are on there and those lights are for off-road use only. Yeah, sure. But anyway, on the interesting and quirky subject of stuff that Ford includes on the Bronco Raptor but assumes you're just going to take off the moment you get the truck, let's talk about the bumper for a second. You can see this is a steel bumper, very tough and ready for whatever you encounter out there. Ford says it has extra bolts compared to a regular Bronco steel bumper for extra reinforcements because, again, they know you're going to be really beating on this truck, and so the more reinforcement the bumper can get, the better. But the bumper also comes with some removable pieces. The end cap of the bumper is easily removable. That's pretty common on off-roader vehicles, so that you can get a little bit more wheel travel and you don't have to worry about the wheel and the bumper coming in contact. More curiously, though, is this little panel below the bumper. This plastic panel down here, you can see, might really hamper wheel travel in certain off-roading situations, and yet there it is sticking out from the bumper. What the hell's that doing there? Ford told me that is for aerodynamics, and they said the benefit of that little panel is actually pretty significant, likely for fuel economy gains, so they've stuck it on there. But it's easily removable, and Ford assumes that most people will take this off the second they get this truck if they plan to do any real sort of off-roading. But it's on there from the factory because it has to be, since it benefits aero so much, having just that little plastic panel under the bumper. Interesting. And next up, since I'm up here, let's go over a few other interesting quirks and features of the Bronco up front. For one thing, you can see the middle part of the bumper is painted silver. In regular Bronco models, that is painted black, but here it's painted silver to kind of keep it in line with other Raptor models, and it's a distinctive look for the Raptor. You can also see the hood is very different from the standard Bronco flat piece of sheet metal. This one has this plastic panel on top of it with various louvers. Ford says this panel is finished in carbonized gray to match the color of the hardtop, and you can also see it has Raptor logos on either side to really emphasize the fact that this is the Raptor. Of course, the truth is you'll know you're looking at a Bronco Raptor the moment you see this thing because of the width, the huge muscular size of this vehicle. So let's talk about that width a little more beyond just the tires and the suspension. Let's talk fenders. The Bronco Raptor has different fenders than the regular Bronco model. Front fenders and rear fenders are completely different. They are wider, as you can see, and the front fenders have these cool air vents, which are functional but also just look awesome and off-roady and cool. Now, interestingly, the doors stay the same. So these are the regular doors from the regular Bronco. They've just increased the width with the fenders and with these massive fender flares, which are responsible for a large portion of the increased width in the Bronco Raptor. Now, something interesting Ford told me about the Bronco Bronco Raptor is the factory that builds this vehicle wasn't set up to make a vehicle this wide, and specifically their paint production process wasn't capable of taking a vehicle this wide. So the maximum the paint shop could do was where the painted parts of this body end. All of the additional width is these unpainted fenders because they couldn't paint them. They literally didn't have a process to create a vehicle this massively wide, and so these fenders take it the extra width. So just how much wider is this Bronco than a standard model? I told you before, 85.7 inches wide with the mirrors folded, but for context, this is almost 10 inches wider than a base model Bronco. 10 more inches of muscly tire and suspension in the Raptor. It's about 4.5, 5 inches wider than a Sasquatch Bronco, and that is a huge, wide vehicle. You look at it, you see this massive track. Well, this thing dwarfs it in terms of width. It really is absolutely huge. And I have to say, Ford has done a pretty good job of integrating all this extra width into the Bronco without compromising the look. The doors stay the same, the fenders change, and yet it looks like it was designed this way from day one. That's especially true in back, where you can see the standard size door actually has to have a piece of fender mounted on it in order for that rear fender to make it look okay over the wheel arch. But again, it looks natural and it looks good and it looks beefy and muscular and Raptor cool. By the way, one other interesting item worth pointing out about that rear fender, you can see this panel here is a little different from the rest of the fender. It has a different texture on it, a slightly different material, and it's clearly a different separate panel from the fender itself. And Ford says that's because these massive tires kick up so much rocks and debris and crap that stuff hits that fender panel, and Ford puts this on here separately with the intent of having it being replaced in the future. They know it's going to get damaged if you do off-roading, stuff's going to hit it. They don't want you to have to replace the whole fender. You can just replace this panel instead when it inevitably gets screwed up off-road. But anyway, next up, continuing on the side of the Bronco Raptor, a few other items to note out here. For one, you can see this truck has side steps, and if you look closely, you can see it also has rock rails. This is different from the standard Bronco where you have to choose between either rock rails or side steps. You get them both in the Bronco Raptor. That's because they've beefed up the rock rails, they've strengthened them in order to be able to accommodate the weight of the side steps and of a person stepping on them in order to climb inside. But you can also remove the side steps if you want, and then you can fully utilize your rock rails if you're on some tough terrain and you want to keep your Bronco's body from getting damaged. A couple other items worth noting out here. For one, this color. This is Code Orange, which is a Ford Performance exclusive color. We saw it on the F-150 Raptor already, and here it is on the Bronco Raptor, and this color will only be available on the Bronco Raptor. You can't get it in other Bronco models. Ford says there will also be a graphics package for the Bronco Raptor, just like there is on F-150 Raptor trucks, like on the side of its bed. You will get that option here as well. Although I haven't seen it yet, I am excited to see what it looks like. Now, one interesting item with the Bronco Raptor, if you don't get the graphics, and this one, as you can see, doesn't have them, then there's really not all that much Raptor badging. I already showed you the Raptor logos on the hood. There's one on each side of this plastic area with all these louvers, but other than that, you only have one more Raptor badge around the back. You can see it says Raptor back here next to the spare tire, and that's it. No excessive badging on this truck, although it's not really necessary. The massive tires, the massive width, and the fenders, and all the other upgrades are going to make it pretty clear that it's a Raptor, but you don't have a lot of badges thrown in your face, which is kind of a surprise. But anyway, next we have to move on to the Bronco Raptor Easter eggs. There are a few very quirky and featurey Easter eggs hidden on the outside of the Bronco Raptor, and I'm going to start in the fuel door. The fuel door is mounted here, as you can see, and in the regular Bronco, when you open up the fuel door, there are graphics of older Bronco models that you can see and I guess look at while you're putting in fuel. Well, in the Bronco Raptor, you open up the fuel door and there are still graphics, but these are historical race-winning Bronco models that competed in the Baja off-road race and won, not just standard regular Broncos, but Broncos that more fit with the ethos of the Raptor. And speaking of Ford's Baja off-roading competition, remember those hood louvers that I mentioned earlier? Well, if you take a very close look at the hood louvers, you can see years imprinted on them. 1967, 69, 71, 72. Those are the years that Ford competed and won at the Baja off-road race. And they've printed those years ever so slightly into the hood louvers, so you can see it if you know to look for them. And now, if you look at them, you'll know what you're seeing. Also, how's this for a quirky little Easter egg? You open up the tailgate in the Bronco Raptor and you can see mounted on the inside of the third brake light is the word Raptor, but printed backwards. And that's because you'll be seeing it from your rear view mirror. So you're driving along, you look in your mirror, you see that, and then it's forwards and it says Raptor, and then you smile because you remember that you have the coolest Bronco of all. And next up, one other interesting Bronco Raptor Easter egg, this one just slightly inside the Bronco Raptor. If you look inside the hardtop on the passenger side, you can see right here there are coordinates. These are the coordinates of the desert in Southern California where the Bronco Raptor was developed, and there's also a little mountain graphic here. Probably not too many people will notice that, but if you do notice that, well, that's what it is. And by the way, speaking of the hardtop, worth noting that all Bronco Raptor models will be hardtop models. Ford says there will be no soft top Bronco Raptors. Hardtop only for the Bronco Raptor. But anyway, now I'm inside the Bronco Raptor, so let's go over some of its interesting quirks and features in here, starting with the GOAT modes. GOAT was sort of a nickname for the early Bronco, which stood for goes over all terrain, although of course in modern parlance it stands for greatest of all time, and Bronco enthusiasts say that either one will do. GOAT modes are the various different drive modes that this Bronco has, and this particular model has two drive modes of interest. One of them is new. There is a new tow/haul mode for the Bronco Raptor, which has been added because the Bronco Raptor can now tow more than previous Bronco models. In the past, the towing capacity was only 3,500 pounds in the Bronco, but for the Raptor, it's now gone up to 4,500 pounds, and you have this new tow mode. I asked Ford, what's the theory on focusing on towing so much? And they say that Raptor buyers really like to bring all of their toys with them, ATVs, off-roaders, jet skis, whatever, and so they wanted to make more towing capacity for the Bronco Raptor. The other important mode to mention here is Baja Mode, which you also have on some other Bronco models, but here it has been optimized. Ford says Baja Mode has been sort of retooled in the Raptor to eliminate turbo lag as much as possible with this powertrain. And that means you get instant throttle response when you're out on the desert flooring it over the sand dunes, trying to go as fast as you can. Well, stick it in Baja Mode and it'll feel even faster. And that's the point of that mode. But anyway, other upgrades to the Bronco Raptor. For one, you get a fully digital gauge cluster in the Bronco Raptor, 12-inch digital gauge cluster, they say, and it has a new Ford Performance mode that allows you to focus on some performance icons, as you might expect. The tachometer in the Performance mode is highlighted, as you can see, since you'll probably be using this off-road where speed limits aren't really that important and maybe engine speed is more important. But you can also see various other gauges here showing off-roading important features and like driver selectable things that you've controlled, all sort of focused in this performance mode for when you really want to go off-roading with performance intentions. And there's more Raptor specific touches in this interior, as you might expect. One very obvious one is all of the code orange little details throughout the interior. Like I said, code orange is the name of this exterior color. It is unique to Ford Performance and the Raptor models, and there's quite a bit of it inside basically everywhere you look. For instance, code orange stitching on the gear lever, as you can see, and on the center armrest, and also you can see code orange stitching on the steering wheel. You also have code orange in the seat centers, these little dots in the center, a lot of orange. You have code orange on the dial for the GOAT modes, as you can see, matching everything else. Code orange on the dashboard on the passenger side inside Bronco, as you can see. You even have these little code orange accents on the switches for the air vent slats to move them around. Even that little detail is code orange. They tried to integrate it in subtle spots basically everywhere they could. Also worth noting, you have code orange seat belts in here, which is kind of a cool touch. More and more automakers doing these special colored seat belts. Now the Bronco Raptor has them too. And a few other Raptor specific touches in here. For one, carbon fiber trim. You don't get too much of it, but there is some. You can see kind of at the edge of the dashboard here. There's also a little bit in the center console. Not much, but just enough to add a little sporty flair. You also have a thicker steering wheel than you get in a regular Bronco model, I guess so you can grab it better and feel tougher. And speaking of the steering wheel, you have magnesium paddle shifters in the Bronco Raptor, which are unique specifically to the Raptor model. I guess other Broncos probably get plastic paddle shifters, but not in the Raptor. Also worth noting, the little plaque in the center console of the Bronco Raptor, you can see it here, is different from the one in the regular Bronco to match the actual grille of this model. And you can see at the bottom it says Ford Performance, again to highlight some of the Ford Performance touches required to make the Raptor. Also worth noting in here, another important item is the seats themselves. I mentioned the code orange touches in the center of the seats, but there's more to them than that. Ford says they are much more heavily bolstered than the seats in the regular Bronco. They figure if you're driving hard off-road, having more bolstering will help you get beat up less when you're out on the trails, especially if you're doing high-speed Baja off-roading. So these seats are an upgrade. And speaking of the seats, let's talk through kind of trims. Ford hasn't announced everything about this vehicle, just the base pricing, but they have announced there's going to be two sort of interior versions. There's a base interior with what Ford is calling marine grade vinyl upholstery and rubber flooring that you can just wash out. So that's what you get if you really want to take it off-road and you don't need any of the luxury stuff. This Bronco Raptor is equipped with the premium interior, which includes like suede on the seats. You can see it looks nicer. Premium models will also have carpeting. You can see here if I lift up this rubber floor mat, carpeting on the floors instead of like rubber you can just hose off. And premium models will also get this vinyl upper dashboard with, as you can see, code orange stitching instead of, I assume, a plastic upper dashboard. This still isn't leather. They want it to be like durable and cool looking, but it is an upgrade and that stitching does look cool if you get the premium model. And of course, just like the F-150 Raptor, you can also kind of option up the Bronco Raptor to have a lot of pretty nice stuff. Ford says there is an available high package with a giant center screen, which of course will be this screen that you can see here. It's a nice feature to have, and it's going to be an option in the Bronco Raptor. You can also get a Luxe package, Ford says, which will include stuff like adaptive cruise control and a Bang & Olufsen sound system, among other things. So you can have kind of a nice, luxurious Bronco Raptor if you want, or a marine-grade vinyl upholstery rubber floor Bronco Raptor if you just want to beat on it. And finally, I want to cover again just slightly timing and pricing. Like I said, this technically goes on sale in March. That's when you can place your order, but deliveries, Ford says, probably won't happen until late spring or summer at the very earliest. And pricing, $69,995 with destination. So $70,000 base price before options with destination. That's a big jump over a regular Bronco. Pretty well-equipped Sasquatch Bronco is in the low to mid $50,000 range, so you'll be spending a lot more for a Raptor, but it is still cheaper than a Wrangler 392. That starts around $75,000, $76,000. So this still undercuts that, but you'd expect it to given less power. However, it's still a Raptor, and that alone will make it especially cool and desirable for a lot of shoppers. And so that's the new 2022 Ford Bronco Raptor, the off-roadiest version yet of the new Ford Bronco. Although this is short on power compared to the Jeep Wrangler 392, it seems like a tremendously promising off-roader, and I cannot wait to get behind the wheel closer to when this goes on sale late in the spring or this summer. For now, you'll have to be satisfied by this tour, the most in-depth look yet at the new Bronco Raptor.